No,
You're live. I saw it this time.
you saw it this time.
You did.
Yeah. Hey, welcome everybody.
Welcome.
Yeah, here we are again. I got to get myself centered here because it looks like I'm looking off of into La La Land here. There we go. Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Rick.
Fati. Hi. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to see you in one piece.
I know. So if something should happen where I disappear, I don't live in Kansas, but I tell you, we got like almost tornado winds happening right now up in. We don't call them tornadoes up here. We call them. What do we call them? Cyclones? There's something like that. I'll have to look it up. Anyways, we got a bit of a windstorm up here on the west coast, and I was on a walk this morning and actually having a conversation with you.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's right.
and and I and at the moment I decided, you know what? I think it'd be cool if I showed Fati the ocean because the ocean was just stirring up like crazy. Like I've never seen it frothing like that. And so I turned my camera on and stopped and took the moment, and then we sort of carried on and chatted about the project that you're on. And that was over, and no sooner did I hang up from you, a tree came down. Right, like and literally I started thinking the time it would take me to get to that tree was pretty well the amount of time that I had stopped to show you this. Like it was absolutely gorgeous and interesting at the same time, with the trees going like this and the ocean frothing up. But it saved me from getting damaged. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, for sure too. That's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
Like those synchronicities that happen.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it really reminded me of, well, a couple of things. One, the part of a life lesson is we really don't know what the future holds.
We don't.
Absolutely no.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that the universe seems to have an ability to communicate if we're willing to listen. Now, I at the moment, I of course I wouldn't have recognized it as for what it is. I'm obviously reflecting back on the situation and sort of putting a couple of connections together. But there was something really nudging me to sort of like grab my attention and said, "Hey, look over here,"
Hmm.
and then share that moment. Another thought comes through and made me stop. Made me stop long enough to actually witness the tree coming down in front of me, as opposed to witnessing it coming down on top of me.
On you. Yeah.
the only the only thing I laugh, um, because I certainly would have been the first to know if it had fallen on.
For sure.
And of course I'm thinking, and geez, now if something did happen, how would my dad know? Because I leave my dad at home to look after himself while I'm gone. How would anybody know? Just like all these different things going on through my head. Anyways, that's my morning. How was your morning?
Wow, that's quite the morning, Rick. How was my morning? It's actually afternoon here. The morning is long gone. Um, I was busy, usual, getting bogged down with technology. A
You have a
PDF,
relationship with
fill,
technology, don't
yeah, filling out a PDF form can be a challenge for me sometimes, but
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's a really nice day here too. It's been like almost like borderlining like August temperatures, which is a little weird. Today is a little bit cooler, but it's a little hard to adjust and know what to wear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The fluctuations are incredible, and that's our nature to adapt, right?
Yeah,
The beauty of
absolutely.
wearing layers as opposed to one big coat.
Well, and also like our nature. is to kind of feel challenged when something changes on us, right? Even if it's cyclical and we know what to expect, whenever the season changes, there's always that moment of adjustment where you feel a little bit lost, right? You have the wrong shoes or the wrong pants or the wrong jacket. Like my daughter was wearing like shorts this morning, and there was another girl standing at the bus stop with us waiting for the school bus, and she was wearing a puffer.
Yeah,
That kind of confusion, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. And what's obviously cold for somebody isn't necessarily cold for everybody,
It's
right?
true. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but yeah. So well, I'm so if I guess I don't know if I finished my sentence there. So if I happen to disappear, it's all on you now. Okay.
Okay. And we're gonna have like a, I mean, the dog maybe would have gone back or started barking, unless the dog fell under the tree too.
Well, yes, yes. You talk about Willow, yeah. I mean, who knows? But we're expecting. We've already had two power outages since this morning. It's now just 1 o'clock where
Mm.
I live, 4 o'clock where you live. We're just after four. So and it's howling and whistling. So if I disappear off this monitor, check the news.
Let's just not think that way, right? Let's
No,
not
no,
feed
no,
the thought.
no. But it is kind of interesting. And I know our topic, and today we decided we're going to use the whiteboard or the
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's see if I could actually put it in here. We're going to talk about
One problem, one cure.
one cure.
Okay. Do you
So
want to start telling us what you mean by that?
well, I mean, this was a perfect example in the sense of um, so there's lots of things going on in like like we all have circumstances. Life is happening in front of us, right? And I have no control over the windstorms. I have no control over trees falling or not falling or whatever kind of a thing. Um, but knowing I had a show to go to, and knowing that it relies on technology, and also experiencing the fact that the power went off this time, and about an hour later it went off again, and then we had a bit of a flash going on. The one problem that I see, and when relating this to clients and what they're experiencing also, is our ability to innocently, because I think we all do that, is to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
overthink everything. Like we go beyond what's happening in the moment. So for me, the overthinking that was kind of taking over a little bit, not a little bit. Now you know, I'm, I'm quite self-conscious and aware of feelings, and when I'm getting too far ahead of myself, right? But the overthinking is like, okay, well, what am I going to do if I can't get on? What am I going to do if my computer, like all these yada da, right? I'm still on my walk.
Mm-hmm.
Any solutions that I think I come up with, I'm still not going to be able to do. So, but it would also remove me from the presence of looking and making sure that I'm safe for the rest of the walk. So, what occurred to me at that moment when I started to think less of what are the possibilities that will happen in the next 2 hours or 3 hours from the time we were talking, I relaxed and then just sort of, okay, put the earphones away, listen, be more present to what's happening in front of you, watch the dog, because sometimes dogs have a better sense of danger kind of a thing. And yeah, and then just came home, and then sort of as things were going forward, I dealt with them in the moment, as opposed to trying to deal with them. So that's what I'm calling about the one problem. If we were to narrow or bring it down to that one thing, we overthink and we get caught up in that thinking that we need to do something about it, thinking that it's real, anxiety, all sorts of different things start to happen. So that's what I'm referring to with the one problem.
I feel like overthinking is basically a response to all the projecting. It's the same, right? It all goes back to the same thing. You're
Hmm.
overthinking something because you're trying to prevent an outcome, or you're trying to just, yeah, prevent different outcomes that could be happening, right? So you're playing out different scenarios, or you're rehearsing something that has already happened. In a sense, we have this false belief that the more you think about it and the more you're going to get to a different
Hmm.
not outcome, but to a different solution, right? And sometimes it's actually, often it is more about slowing down that allows you to see a different solution, right? It's not when your thoughts are racing and when you're like thinking about the same thing over and over and over again. That goes very much into the response, the pattern of response, right? To the fight or flight, to the illusion that by doing more, we're actually preventing something. It is that false sense of control, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Oh, what happened? There may be an outage. I'm not sure what's happening. Hello, Paul. If anyone's watching, can you let me know if you can hear me and see me? Oh, okay. I'm like, I don't know what is happening. Well, it looks like we have lost Rick. I'm gonna try and send him a message, see if he's still online. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll continue talking about this subject by myself until he comes back on. I'm not sure if I have to let him back on or if he's going to be coming on. This is the beauty of live shows. The first time for me doing it all by myself. But what we were discussing right now was about how we see that everything brings us back to fear, to the fear of what may happen in the future, and fear of recreating something that has happened in our past. And so when you think about it that way, you can always bring yourself back to the present moment. And sorry guys, I'm very distracted by, are you there? I was not sure if you were the one that disappeared or if I was the one that
the O
disappeared.
disappeared. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
The
yeah, Paul. Yeah,
camera looks different too. I lost my train of thought. I was looking at the buttons. I didn't know if I was supposed to press anything. to bring you back.
We're not prepared for this. And look, my camera is all out of whack now. You can see
Fear.
my mouth.
I was like, what am I going to do now? I need to keep talking and maybe press something. Fear in action, people.
Oh, and Paul, thanks,
Okay.
Paul. Yes, he'll be back. Yes, thanks for keeping Fati.
I was like, I don't know what is happening.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, I'm trying to get
Well,
my camera to come back on. Oh, there's an app screen already
you're
running.
back
Oh, what do you
on.
mean there's a camera already running? Oh, there we go. Oh my goodness. So yeah, so that I hopefully that's the
The
only
last time.
yeah, well,
Because it was weird to talk to myself. Well, people, you just witnessed fear in my face. Rick disappeared. And I looked at this screen and I didn't know what to touch and where to press and how to bring it back.
bring him back. What could I do?
I need a lesson on how to manage this thing. I was definitely abandoned, Paul. I was like, I can't think straight right now. I don't know if I should be doing something or if I should just talk. What if he doesn't come back? All the thoughts that went through my head.
Hey, hey.
And I was like, I guess I just have to be present with this moment. And then I saw you appear.
Yeah, and then of course
Sometimes.
I texted you, and I guess oh yeah, yeah, we lost you. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody will be able to see this properly or not, but uh, I mean that's the tree that
Yes.
came down in front of me on my walk, right? So yeah, no, there's stuff happening, and
I feel like the tree just hit me in the head.
well, I'm sorry for not giving you any notice, but hey,
I was like,
but that's I mean you had a really real life experience of a of kind of like what I'm pointing to in a very kind of in an innocent way, but it's sort of like you get caught up in the overthinking about okay, like what now, and then of course your wisdom kicked in and went, I just need to be present. And
I
then
mean, you're gonna watch the replay and tell me what happened. I watched the replay too.
that's right, we have a replay.
I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now.
This is gonna. There's probably a lot of good blooper reels out of this that we can capitalize on.
We can definitely capitalize on my reaction. I was
Yeah.
like, what now?
Okay. Well, you're prepared now. So if I again,
Yeah,
well, if I do disappear,
I keep talking.
you just like, oh, is somebody gone? Yeah, just excuse me, folks. But yeah, we have. I'll try if it goes any longer. Obviously, I'll try and I can log on using batteries, which I should keep that charged up. Anyways, okay, where
Going back
were
to
we?
fear. So fear kicked in.
Yes,
Everybody saw that in my face, right? it took a few seconds for me to like, I'm like, do I keep talking? Do I keep like, what do I keep doing? And like,
yeah,
stop
yeah,
looking. And I looked at the buttons and I got even more like fearful. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what to press. I don't know what
yeah,
to do. I don't know if I'm on. So I asked Paul, can you hear me? And he's like, yes, we can hear you. I was like, I guess I'm live. I'm the one that's still here.
yeah, yeah. Nothing's changed there.
Yeah, and it takes a few seconds, but I think that's the prime example of when we get into that state when fear kicks in. I couldn't even talk. I didn't even know what to say, right?
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
just prevents you from being coherent,
Yep,
frankly,
yep,
right?
yep, yeah. And when you think that's the only reality now that you've got,
Hmm.
it's like what I was mentioning. I'm not sure if it was the last episode. I've talked about fear and I broke it down into feelings and emotions and then actions and results, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
when we're in deep fear, right, we start to look towards the, okay, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Instead of looking inside and sort of relaxing and then just seeing what might come up with that. Because when we're caught up in that fear, right, it's the whole unclear cloudiness shaking up the snow globe.
I had a lot of shaking up just happening.
Right. but but you realize though at that moment, like in that moment, it doesn't take much to let it settle.
Hmm.
Like some people say, think that it takes a lot of effort or something like that to get out of getting caught up in it, but really it's just a moment. And I
Hmm.
know that in from a first responder point of view, it is that moment where everybody, um, you know, uh, I'll just give you a bit of a scenario. So sometimes we have some really high chaotic scenes where there's multiple agencies responding to a single event,
Hmm.
and most of the time, the senior crew that comes into the event, the first thing they do is they're not worried about what's happening in the event. They're looking at where the crew is in their state of mindfulness, kind of a thing. Where are they? Are they caught up in sort of the fear of the call, kind of a things? So where are they being, in their actions? Are they meaningful? And so part of it is that if they find the scene and everybody's running around like trying to scramble, look for, like, stop. Let's just let's refocus. And that's all it takes, is everybody just stops for a second, takes a big deep breath, and then says, okay, what do we need to do? And it's as simple as that. So that's what I point to, is the part of the one care part, is realizing where we are, like we're caught up in our thinking, and then just sort of that stop. Okay, so what really is happening in the moment? And it only takes a couple of, like, we're only talking a couple of minutes, like not a couple of seconds, even sometimes, even it seems faster than that. Okay, what's real? What is, okay, Rick's gone. Don't touch any buttons. Check to see if my audio is on. Kind of figure, right, right, um
Yeah. I
yeah,
was
no.
looking around and I'm like, I don't want to touch anything because I may end this thing and then we can get back on. I was looking in panic, full panic, like, what do I do now? Right. And you're right. I mean, like, it's just like there was no thinking that was going through my head in that moment that was really serving me. Right.
Mhm.
And I kind of, as I was like, okay, I guess I'll keep talking about the topic. I was really talking myself out of the moment that I was in. So be present.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's a, and I think, we've all, had moments like that.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know anybody in this world that's actively engaged in everything that's around them, has not come across a situation, sometimes even on a daily basis, where you just get caught up in your thinking, and you're acting according to what you think is really really happening, and not realizing that the real truth to the situation is being masked over by that overthinking. um, and really it's about little things like, and I, whatever you want to call them, little tricks or little anecdotes, little things to remind me, um, about slowing down to the speed of life, right? Noticing that I'm so wrapped up in my thinking that it's causing me to have chest pain, like.
Hmm.
And it's interesting. I was sharing this with a friend of mine, about breathing. we were talking about breathing, and there's a he it there's an origin from Hebrew scripts, or it even could be from Sanskrit, that spirit is breathing and spirit are related. They're spirit means breathing in certain, in either the Hebrew or the Sanskrit. And for me, when I notice my breathing when I'm in these anxious moments, it's like, right? It's very short, very shallow, not
Mm-hmm.
getting any circulation at all. And then it's sort of like, oh, wait a minute. It's taking that deep breath, and it's almost like a cleansing that happens. It's just sort of
Mm-hmm.
like, for me, like I'm sure other
But
people have
it
different
slows
experiences.
things down for you. Like I started sweating. I started just, like my head is, my head is racing,
I
right?
gotta
Like,
watch the replay.
oh my God. Yeah, I want to watch a replay too. Like there was a shift in my body, right, that happened. And
Yeah,
also, if you are in a panic mode, or if you're like in fear mode, you cannot be happy, right? You cannot have two contrasting feelings at the same time,
absolutely.
right?
You can,
So in
absolutely.
order to shift that, you really have to slow down, stop, and then shift back. But
Well,
it's, what is amazing is how quickly we get into that place. I mean, like you disappeared, and I was immediately like transformed. Like, what is
sure.
happening? What am I going to do?
Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah,
all this
yeah.
stuff going through my head,
I
right?
couldn't have planned it better, could have I?
I know. It's like, let's just show everyone what fear looks like. let's, show, let's show the fear of life in Fatih's face. But it's also a prime example of when something goes, something unpredictable happens, right? And how much we don't like that, right? As long as we can predict what's going to happen, as long as it's what has always happened, we're completely comfortable in it. You change one thing, Rick disappears. Like my breathing is like faster. I'm sweating through my shirt. I'm looking around. I don't know what to touch. I don't know what to say. It's fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
I see it as a very, it was a good example of how this works, if
Well,
anything.
and but yeah, exactly. When you said it, it's interesting because we have the ability to witness our own consciousness.
Yes. No.
Yeah, which when sometimes when we're caught in the moment, we don't realize it, but then you start to realize, oh my goodness, I am a little overwhelmed. I am feeling anxious. And then at
Hmm.
that moment, we have the ability to go, you know, okay, so what I need to, we know what to do. I need to slow down. I need to just take a break for a second, like whatever, um, and that's the real time response mechanism that everybody has within them.
Hmm.
I'm going to give you another example, and it has to do with my daughter. And she had a job interview um, uh, on Tuesday, and on Monday we were together and we were enjoying one of my grandsons. It's howling, so if I disappear, um, that
I'll have to tell the story of your daughter.
yeah. But we were enjoying the game, but I could sense that she was a little distracted, and then she mentioned, "Oh, I got my job interview tomorrow," and
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, well, that's cool." And and I asked her a little bit about it, and I could see that she was getting right a little caught up in her thinking about it. Right,
Mm-hmm.
that interview wasn't until the next morning, and I said to her, I says, "Can I offer you one thing?" And she says, "Sure." I said, this is what I found helpful for me when I notice that I am overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
I I remind myself that, wait a minute, I'm way too far ahead of. Why don't I let Rick of tomorrow, of Tuesday, deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Rick is watching a baseball game. I don't need to be doing anything other than that, because I mean, what could I do about tomorrow? So letting, so I said to her, I says, why don't you just let, you know, you deal with it tomorrow? And she
Hmm.
thought that was, she reflected on it. She said, that's really good.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And we all have that capacity to know that tomorrow, or for whatever happens in the moment,
Hmm.
and you've demonstrated that clearly here. You do have the capacity
To recover
to
quickly.
recover. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, when we came up with this, we were talking about something that I feel like it's a really important topic for people, right? We're brainstorming around what can we talk about that can be helpful to people, that it's something that people feel challenged by.
Yeah.
And I mentioned anxiety, right? And
Yeah.
then we did some thinking around it, and I was like, well, it really is all the same thing, right?
Always.
Because
Yeah.
what anxiety is fear, like over time, right? It's like you being in a state of fear constantly, right? To some degree, right? Um, Anxiety can, you can have mild anxiety, you can have severe anxiety, but anxiety can become chronic, right? It
Yeah.
can become your normal state if you constantly live in fear of something, right?
Yeah.
It can become your, like, the way you operate,
Yeah.
right? And and so I think it's, like, when we really talk about anxiety becomes a little bit of a label that people subscribe to, right?
Yeah.
I'm someone who has anxiety,
Yeah.
right? There's really no other way to deal with anxiety that's any different than dealing with fear, right? Being present, asking yourself, is this actually happening right now? Is it really true? And not getting caught up in that thinking, right? So it's basically, if you haven't watched this, go back and see me in, like, full on fear over time, right? If I lived in that state over time,
Yeah.
that state would prevent me from functioning, would prevent me from speaking coherently, would prevent me from taking action. It's a little bit of a freeze state,
Oh,
right? It's a
100%.
little
Yeah.
bit of a freeze state. So when we talk about anxiety, I think it's really helpful to really speak of it in terms of fear, right? Anxiety
Yeah.
is just really a series of, like, different scenarios that you're creating for yourself, fearful scenarios that you're creating for yourself all the time, right? You just live in a state of fear of anything happening, being late, not, and not making an appointment, or showing up and not getting, the response that you were expecting, or not turning in something on time, right? But if you do that over time and, habitually,
Yes.
then you become addicted to that way of thinking, right? You become addicted
You, well, you
to the
define yourself.
fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, you find reasons to be fearful in
Yeah.
any situation,
Yeah.
and therefore you're constantly fearful of something, aka anxious.
I'm just going to pull that fear chart up here
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
I
go
think it's,
ahead.
yeah. But we talked about labels before, and when it when it starts to define us instead of describing us, right? That's when we really get into the
Yeah,
problems things, right? Um,
it's very much a label.
oh,
Anxiety is very much a label, is very much of almost like there's a little bit of social conditioning to think that, well, anxiety is an epidemic, and, like, we have so much anxiety. It really is about being afraid constantly about things.
and what do
Yeah.
you, and so, like, so fear, the original acronym for me, fear was false emotions appearing real.
Hmm.
So when we talk about the one problem, one cure, we're talking about thought. We're talking about our conditional thinking that we get caught up in. So where are we? We're thinking about what is real. and not what's presently real, what the future is. And what is that made of? It's made up of thought. It's made up of something that we are creating. We're and so we think, because we feel a certain way, that this is a reality. But when we recognize what feelings and emotions really are, that they're a two-sided coin to thought, that we are always experiencing life through our feelings brought on through thought, that this is just an indicator.
It's a
But
messenger.
yeah, it's the messenger. So if we look at it as not the messenger, but what our reality is, then we're looking at, okay. I know this is, doesn't look, you can't see it really well, but it says results. So we're looking at changing our circumstances. We're trying to adjust outside influences, right? And then we're looking at actions. What can I be doing differently to try and correct this? But if we just took the moment and realized that, hey, we're just caught up in here. It has nothing to do with doing anything or changing anything. It's really about understanding where this is sort of coming from. And you can, and I call it the stop, drop, and roll with it kind of a deal, where you just stop what you're doing. You drop the fact that there's something you need to do. In other words, just wait a minute, and then have this actually, instead of, if I bought into it and stayed here, your actions and results
And it happens again. Well, what should I do? I'm going to entertain you myself. I know that he's going to come back on now, and I'm not fearful right now as I was before. But I think what he's trying to get to is that, and I guess I'm going to let him finish saying what he was trying to get to. And I'm just going to speak to the fact that I feel that any thought that is going to create discomfort for you is a thought that comes from your past and from an experience of the past. So you're taking an experience of the past and you're using it to predict the future. It's what we always talk about. It's what always happens. And it's never, there you go. Now we lost him completely. It's never something that is happening in the moment. So the only way for you to uh, truly be in the present moment is to kind of start, do what he was saying. Stop in the moment the thinking that is causing the reactiveness and ask yourself, is this happening in this moment, or am I just taking an experience that I've had in the past and projecting it into the future? The fear that we feel in that moment is very much around what we have experienced in that past. It's very much in the memory of that experience that we have had in the past. And but what is not true about that is that it's not happening in that moment, and it does not mean that it has to happen in our future. But as we always speak to, the way the brain works and the way we like to feel in our everyday life, we like to be able to predict things. We like to be able to know what's going to happen, because we don't like surprises like this one, like finding myself talking to myself, to all of you, and losing Rick from time to time. It's uncomfortable. It's not what we like because it's not what we expect to happen, but it can happen, right? And the only way to actually overcome these states is by constantly redirecting ourselves. So, in a way, training ourselves by redirecting ourselves over and over again, we are now training ourselves slowly to change that behavior, to change that state. So, the first time that Drake dropped out of our live show, I panicked. The second time, I didn't panic as much because, in a sense, I have had that experience before. I knew what to expect and I knew that it was going to be back eventually, right? And now you're on my right side instead of my left side.
there we go.
And you're not zoomed in.
No, I'm just waiting. My computer is still like this is very unusual to have these sort of like on switch, off switch power outages.
Mm.
Um, but so so tell me how,
I was speaking to, from my point of view, I was
yeah,
saying, I feel that in any moment, it really is about taking that experience of the past, right? Like in the present moment, when you're living in fear, unless it's an imminent fear, you are recreating your past, right? You're taking that experience of the past and bringing in the emotion that was created in that moment, and you're making it real in that moment, even when it's stop doing that. It's very distracting. But but let's take this moment actually to, as a teaching moment, because that's exactly what happens. Like when you're talking about something, like I just was, and something happens that distracts you. What happens is you lose your train of thought.
hmm
So in this case, unfortunate, right? But if you're in fear, stopping your thinking does the same thing. It distracts you from the thought that is creating the fear.
yeah.
So if you are in a moment of panic or fear, or that you cannot get out of your thoughts, something that distracts you from it, an event, anything, right, that can distract you from the thought, can be very helpful to stop that behavior, that train of thought in that moment,
When you
because that
notice,
can be a challenge. Yeah.
yeah, when I mean, so that's the first level. Like I talk that, here we go again. I hear trash cans flying down the street now. Um, watch the news. It's got to be
It's
crazy actually.
fun show.
The uh
I may start dancing next time if you disappear.
okay, but it's interesting how you say the train of thought, because we tend to lose something in the moment, like it feels right in
Mhm.
the moment, and then we spend all this time trying to, okay, like how do I get back to it, and what am I going to do about it, kind of a thing. um but yeah, so yeah, I'm not sure where I was going other than,
You
oh yeah,
lost your
right,
train of thought.
what you're thinking about thought, right, is that the at the very first level, and this analogy is a glass elevator. You've been in, I'm sure New York's got glass elevators, right?
Mhm.
And I think we have one elevator. No, anyway, we're not that small of a town, but I know there's one in the big city of Vancouver. And but when you're on the ground floor, all you see is concrete wall. You don't like the glass part isn't 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 working, in the sense of I can't see out of it because all I can see is the concrete wall. If that's where you stayed, that's where your reality is. Your point of view is, oh, this is great. Everything looks like a concrete wall. But when you start to notice that, oh, wait a minute, I am in an elevator, and there is an opportunity to look at things differently, that when you start to rise even just one level, and I call that the awareness level, where you start to think about your thinking, be more aware about your thinking, and you go, oh, I got anxious there for a moment. Cool. There's nothing wrong with us. It's
Mhm.
again, it's the signal, right? Cool. What's even more cool is you don't have to do anything about it other than recognize it for what it is and just settle in, like just relax for a second, and then see what actions you can take,
Mhm.
right? It's that moment of clarity that we all have access to at any moment of time, regardless of what's going on, regardless of how many times Rick disappears. We have,
And it's always when you're talking.
yeah, no,
So I'm like,
we're having way too much fun today. Let's practice freezing, and everybody thinks
no,
there's
we're,
nothing.
we're just practicing panic mode here, like
Sure.
not being in a panic. I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you almost got hit by a tree. So
Hey, but but even then, I was very present, right? And and you will notice that in high what I call a high acuity call with first responders is that they are very, very present to the moment. They are doing, not necessarily like their skills, and they call that being in the zone, right? So their skills and wisdom, the ability to know what to do at the right time based on the skill levels that they have, that's being in the zone. So they're doing, all they're doing is doing. They're being almost, it feels like you're being guided.
Hmm.
when when you're caught up in your thinking, you don't have access to that until you recognize where you are, and then it's sort of like, excuse me, you just kind of take a back seat for a second, long enough to get clarity, and then you kind of like, oh, okay, because the only thing you need to worry about is, okay, what do I have to do now? And
Well, I had to keep talking.
well, and that's what came up for you, right? That came up
I
for you.
mean, I'm like, I didn't know what else to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess you did a good job because you're still here.
I didn't know. It would have been real bad if I just got up and left.
Well, I guess that's it. But you see,
Oh,
other many people have done that.
got up and left.
No, well, absolutely, absolutely. Like when you're in a low state, right? And and you're acting in that low state, you're going to get the results you're in.
Mm,
And a lot of it, if you're at the ground floor and all you see is the concrete wall, it may only look like my only option is to leave this job, leave this marriage, leave this whatever it is, whatever we come up with, right? But when we have clarity, other possibilities come into up front for us. It just doesn't look like a concrete wall anymore. We have a we're rising to a different point of view where there's more than just one possibility. Where before it looked like there was only one possibility. Obviously, that person's got to go, or I've got to do this, or whatever. I have to fire somebody.
well, obviously, that past experience is going to happen
Well,
again, right?
well, yeah, because you're going to get your like that definition of insanity, right? If you keep doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results, right? But we innocent, like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, but this is what we innocently do. I get caught up in it at times too, and it's like, oh my goodness, and then when I realize it, okay, okay, that's fine. Everything will be fine.
Just
But
saying,
but
you
that's
planned
that's
this,
what
you
ends up
planned your
happening.
disappearance.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
You've been planning your disappearance.
I was not. This is not planned. Although I could not have planned it any better, really, when you considering what we're talking about, right?
It's true.
But yeah, no, it's a, and I apologize, or I'm sorry that it had to be all on you, but
But you know what I also just noticed, because I don't really get in this state often, right? It's
yeah,
more like, I may get worked up around something, upset, or like, just like, oh, what do I do, right? It really feels as though time is slowing down, right? It
mm,
felt like forever. The first few like seconds felt like, oh my God, this is gonna go on forever, right?
yeah,
But the moment that I was able to just get a hold of myself, but I kept talking, right?
sure. I mean, that's
Talking out loud,
yeah,
and like kind of, refocusing, then like time seems to catch up to you too. Like it's a very bizarre, there's a shift in your body, there's a shift in your breathing, in your
yeah,
body temperature. The thoughts are like racing, right? But it feels like time is going by very slow. It's a fascinating state.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And and it's a
I-
natural state. It's part of our natural color, natural healing process.
yeah.
That's where, people think that they have to get something or be better at something. Like, I need to get more resilient. We are actually more resilient than you give yourself credit for. Like,
Hmm.
it's built into us. The only thing that gets in the way is that we have the ability to talk ourselves out of it. And that's where, it's like, our natural state is peace, calm, and understanding. And you know and but we talk ourselves out of that. It's like, oh, what if the power goes out?
And I think that
Okay.
the other thing that it's important to really understand is that thoughts, you can have random thoughts, right? But
Oh,
there's different types of thinking patterns, right? There's we very much have habitual thinking patterns,
conditioned thinking. Yes.
conditioned thinking, and we don't often realize that we're in that pattern,
Yes.
right? Because it's the way we're used to thinking, right?
Yes.
But it is often that habitual way of thinking that, let's say, for the person that's always living in anxiety, they have a certain pattern of thinking that happens all the time. That is the very thing that creates that state, right? And so really tackling the thinking by redirecting it, small steps at a time, one thought at a time, is the only way to get out of that, get out of
Yeah.
fear, get out of anxiety, right? Again, from the first time that you disappeared to the second time that you disappeared, we can go back and see my reaction was very different.
We'll have to put it together, like, before and afters, right?
Or maybe we'll just remove it altogether.
Oh.
No, but I'm just saying there's a difference. If it happened again, it would be different again. And I think I would eventually get to the point where I'll be laughing about it, right?
Well,
I will feel
100%.
no fear at all, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, it happened again.
Yeah.
It's me and you, me and you, right?
And so I love what you just said, because it it highlights experience as the best teacher,
Hmm. Yes.
right?
Hmm.
So when you have experienced the fact that you can go through something and actually come out of it with very little scars, let's just say, um, it's like, oh, I can actually do that. Cool.
And focus on that and focus
Yes,
on the fact that you can come out of it instead of
I always
focusing
will.
on, oh my god, I got sweaty and I got panicky and I got, I felt really uncomfortable, time is going by really slowly. So we could focus on all of that,
Yeah.
right? And then next time this happens, you're going to be like, oh my god, I'm in it again, and it's like, it's happening again. See, that's what happens. Or you could say what you just said, I came out of it. It was
Yeah.
fine. It was maybe less than a
Yeah.
minute, right? I survived it.
So, if you were to think back at all the areas in your life that you have experienced, and I'm talking in general to our audience, at times, when you were in the thick of it, it looked like, what? I don't think I'm ever going to get through this.
Yeah.
And yet here we are. And yet here we are. And we, like you said, we forget how resilient we really are, because we focus on the event so much. And then we go, well, I can't go through that again. Well, duh. I'm sorry. But it's like, it's like, you just did, but it was uncomfortable. So, like, it's the meaning, and I think you were pointing to that. It's the meaning that we put on to all this feelings and emotions that we have about what's happening in front of us. That's what gets us into like, like you said, oh, like, I have a dark cloud over me because it just seems like everybody, disappears when the power goes out all the time.
Or it could be focusing on like, oh, I looked like I didn't have it together and I
All
looked
that type, all that stuff.
panicky. And it was,
Yeah,
I could really focus on the discomfort and all the things that I may get in my head about,
sure. Yeah,
what is anyone going to think? And this is going to make me look less professional. I look like I don't know what I'm doing. I could be focusing on all of that. And guess what? Then I would have fear of getting on here again
yeah,
because this may happen again, right?
yeah,
Or I can focus on the fact that, look at that, we had an opportunity to just demonstrate live what panic and fear looks like and how you come out of it with no warning.
yeah.
A true live
Absolutely,
experience.
a real live experience.
I mean, listen, it's the way it works, right? You can choose to
Absolutely.
focus on the discomfort, or you can choose to focus on, oh, well, now I know what to do next time this happens. Rule
And it
number
becomes
one,
the
do
same.
not touch anything.
Well, sure. I mean, you could have. I mean, you would have.
I
I
no.
know. I trust you. You would have figured it out. You're not that challenged on.
Well, I just, I mean, I don't think there's really a way to bring you back. You have to come back. That's what I was thinking. What can I do to bring him back? And I was like, oh, I only see end
It's a
broadcast over
monster. It's
here.
a monster. I was just thinking of a young Frankenstein movie. Bring him back.
Bring him back.
Back to the Future. The but that, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's what I find interesting is that that now is become part of your skill set.
Yeah, so you're gonna
Right.
have to disappear a couple more times so I can get even
Hey, I
better
can
at
arrange that. I can
it.
arrange that. Um, and we should
It's
talk about holidays. But anyways, the we forget that that's part of our experience package, right? It becomes part of our intellect. People think that it's bad to be intellectual and all that, but it's part of our toolkit, right?
yeah.
I could never do my job without my intellect, but I know that I'm more effective when I allow my intuition and wisdom to also play in the game in the field.
Hmm.
So it's one mind as opposed to, well, I'm just going to think my way out of this problem, which we tend to do a lot, right? We get caught up in our thinking, which is the one problem, and then we want to think our way more out of the problem instead of, oh, wait a minute, let me just relax a minute, stop thinking, allow wisdom to creep in, and just say, okay, so what part of my toolbox can I pull out? What monkey wrench can I use?
What is just me and that camera? It's
Well,
like, I
totally.
gotta help myself in this moment. What do I say? Like I couldn't even like put a thought together until I just relaxed, right? And that's very much what happens, in
Exactly.
any situation that we're fearful of. For as long as you're caught up in the emotion and the reactiveness, there's really no thinking that is serving you in that moment.
So what do we, and we don't even practice this, but what do we love to play with prior to our show?
I don't
I
know.
know, I know, I know. Stop putting me on the spot here. But we kind of look towards spontaneity. Like we look
Hmm.
towards not having a script, not being prepared,
Oh,
even though we have a title, right?
prime example.
A prime example. But even then, as much as we practice it on a weekly basis here, there are moments that can catch us off guard, right?
Yeah.
And when they do, it's really nice to know that we do have access to something different, as opposed to something that we think will always happen, the conditioned habitual thinking.
Yeah, and I like what you said that you practice like just slowing down your breathing, right? And I think that's That's such an important tool to have at your disposal. You can almost always use it. I just
Mhm.
didn't feel like I could have done that.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to
so,
meditate now for this.
so it's making me think, oh, well, what else could I have done to kind of like bring myself back, like quicker? So, it got me thinking in this direction as you were talking. And I'm like, okay, maybe I could have just rubbed my hands on my legs and focused on that
But
while
here's the
trying
thing,
to
though.
say something at the same time.
Well, absolutely. So now we get into this other trap of reflecting on, okay, what could have I done better? You did exactly what you needed to do given the level of your understanding,
In that
right?
moment.
In the moment. Now you could have stayed down here and acted accordingly, right? But you allowed your snow globe to settle enough, and your wisdom said, this is what you needed to do. Just slow down a bit. Right?
Hmm.
So our wisdom, our intuition, when we're not shaking our snow globe enough, will give us the answers in real time. The little bit of the trap is because it worked there once, we think that will be a technique. I don't take deep breaths all the time. Sometimes it's I just need to take a walk. Sometimes it's so I look towards what my body's telling me to do as
Hmm.
opposed to pulling a technique out thinking that that's what I need to do and then finding out, well, geez, this meditation is not working today. I don't know why, because it's not the answer for today.
It's good to have those tools, though,
But
right?
but it's there.
It's
It's in
good
your
to
bank.
have
I'm
that.
saying
Yeah.
it's in your bank. It's always in your
Hmm.
bank. It's just that if I use it as my only tool, my go-to, and find out it's not working, it's because it really wasn't the right tool for the job in the moment. And that's what I'm calling about is that moment response.
Hmm.
And so at this time, you were doing the best you could, given the level of understanding, right? And as your level of understanding started to change, as I disappeared the second time, you were not down here anymore, right? You were
In
still
between.
right, right.
Yeah.
But even then, it was like, but you bounced back faster, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of something that
Oh, geez, we're
one of
2
my,
hours.
like, are you there?
Yeah, I'm
One of
still.
my clients asked me about, she was like, well, I'm just in a panic. I'm just so anxious, and none of these things work. None of the techniques work. And what I said to her was, but then she was feeling really well, when we were having our session. And I'm like, well, what worked? And she's like, well, when and like, I got, a sound bath. I got, like this and that. And I was like, well, then I guess the answer is none of these techniques work when you're in that state, right? So the answer is to change your state, whatever it takes for you to get there, right? Going back to what you're saying, it's not always going to be breathing, although I think that breathing can always work to
Oh,
calm you
sure,
down at the
sure.
very least, right? It may not be the most effective in that moment, but you do need different tools for different situations, right? Um, but I think that the bottom line is that the only way for you to be able to see that solution, right? Because in that moment, the tool is the solution, is to slow down and change your state of being, right?
and
Slow
and,
down your
and that's
thinking.
exactly it. That's
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
one cure. To me, that's
yeah,
always been the one cure is to recognize what's going on and slowing down enough to get more
yeah,
present, right?
yeah.
To see what's real and then deal with what's real because everything else is just made up,
Hmm.
right? What's happening tomorrow is made up. You have no idea, right? So, anyways, I know I disappeared for minutes out of the time, um, but I want to thank you for being who you are today and what you brought because I can't wait to kind of see what happened. But
Oh,
Um,
For demonstrating live what fear looks
demonstrating
like.
live, yeah,
Yeah.
what it really looks like. But yeah, what an interesting show this has been. What an interesting show. I hope whoever's watched it live and who gets to watch the recording in the future gets to um, get something out of it. I hope you hear something out of it. And if you want to hear more, check our other broadcasts. We have a YouTube channel, and we also have our Facebook page. And wherever you go, make sure you like or subscribe, share it with friends and family. But also, there are links to us. If you want to contact
Absolutely.
us
Yeah.
directly, there are links within the descriptions of all these videos. Reach out to us. We're more than happy to take a question, have a have an opportunity to have a short chat and just discuss things. We have the technology to talk to anybody in the world now with Zoom when the power works. Um, and
When Rick is managing it.
okay, we're gonna control the weather now. Hold on to this tree so it doesn't. But no, yeah, what a blessing this has been, and I'm so glad to be here, considering all the events that have happened so far today. And we'll definitely see what's happening now and later and whatever. But just know that it's no matter what, it will be okay. Fatih's got it all under control.
I'm here. I'm okay. I survived it.
Yeah. Anyway,
All
thanks everybody.
right.
Talk to you next week.
See you next week.